Hi friends! If you follow the CosTube guide over on Instagram, you may have noticed a few days ago I was supposed to release a video for hashtag Fandomfebruary floating around CosTube that was started by Katie of Latina Living History and Kayla of McNerdy Costumes. I had made my daughter Mac and I these adorable coordinating sweaters, Mac's being Star Wars themed. I had a whole video ready to go, about 30 minutes long, so quite a long one for me. And as I was uploading, somehow the file was corrupted, the video is not functional anymore, and basically I would have to start all over. So instead of being the entire making process of these sweaters, this video is just going to be a little walkthrough of the patterns, how I changed them, why I changed them, how easily or not so easily they came together, how comprehensible I found the pattern instructions, and a little pattern review, just if I would recommend them and why, and if I was going to recommend them, what I would do from there. So I used two free patterns for this, one for a toddler hoodie and one for an adult pullover. While they are mommy and me sweaters because they're for me and my daughter, both patterns are presented as gender neutral and can be used for any combination of families as long as you're, nerdy enough to wear matching sweaters. I decided against doing a hoodie for mine, even though my daughter's is a hoodie, but I will also include another free pattern that has a hoodie if you'd like to add a hoodie to yours and kind of Franken pattern them together. So like I said, these are free patterns that I've just found searching through the internet. So this will be a quick, relatively uncomplicated video, and let's get started. So here is the toddler hoodie pattern by Brindle and Twig. Here I am cutting out the 18 to 24 month pattern since Mac is 18 months. For patterns this small, I like to cut out the pattern pieces and then tape them together. For larger patterns, I like to tape the grid of papers together and then cut the pattern pieces out. So that's personal preference. And here's the Star Wars knit fabric. The pattern is really clear about the pattern layout and which pieces you need to cut out of the main fabric and which pieces you need to cut out of the contrasting fabric. So it was very easy to understand what I needed to do. For the contrast fabric, I decided to use this Galaxy knit. For this sweater, the only place I deviated from the pattern instructions was instead of cutting two out of this pattern piece, I cut one of the pattern piece and then cut one of the contrasting fabric just a bit larger so that I could fold it over and create a pocket detail like there's a contrasting detail on the shoulder seams. Then I lined up the edges but kept the corners offset so that when I turned it inside out and centered everything, it would look kind of like a metered corner and I would have this contrast on the edge of the pocket. After that, I put the rest of the pattern together exactly the way that it told me to. So I finished it last night. I think it's really heckin' cute. You can see everything I've got going on here. If I were going to do this again, I think I would maybe make these seam details just a little bit bigger, just because they're not that noticeable, and I think I'd just like a little more pop of color there. And I think I maybe would have sewn them down first before trying to serge everything together, because I am not too experienced with putting things together on the serger, and you can see it kind of turned out a little wonky instead of particularly even. So that's more of a me thing. If you were more experienced, you could probably just whip it up. But yeah, I really like it. I'm excited to see how this kind of scuba hood looks because I've never done something like that before, and I really love this just extra pop of color in the hood. So it came together really easily. I'm really pleased. I liked the pattern a lot and I thought the instructions were really clear, so I would definitely recommend it. So now I'm going to work on my hoodie. This is the Hickory Ensemble from Mood. They have a ton of free sewing patterns online. I found this one on Pinterest, but I have used one of their free sewing patterns before and it turned out really well, so I'm pretty hopeful about that. This was the main fabric for Macrina's sweater. I don't have enough of it to do a full one for me, but maybe I can use it as like an accent or something. Obviously, this doesn't look exactly like hers did, so I will need to make a few changes. I want to add a pocket, add some detailing here, maybe add a hood. We'll see. I'm not sure how I feel about hoodies. So I'm going to make a few changes, but not too many. It's pretty close. Since I didn't have enough of that fabric for the main body, I figured I could do just black and then make it coordinating with hers instead of matching exactly. This is, come on, color correct. This is a blanket I found at the thrift store. It says $2.20, but I bought it on half off day, so it was a whole $1.10. I'm just gonna start by seam ripping this thing off, and the rest of it is just this plain fuzzy black material. So I'm gonna lay it out and make sure I have enough of it, but I think I do, and that'll be nice. So I have got my pattern here all put together and cut out, and I checked my measurements. According to my bust measurement, I should have been like a size 20 or 22, but according to, you know, my waist, because I'm pregnant right now, so I'm gigantic, I should have been a size 28 or 30. So those are quite different. What I decided to do for that is cut out a size 24, 26, which is right in the middle, because obviously I don't mind super large, bulky, slouchy sweaters. So if it's a little big, that won't bother me at all, and I can always tailor it down later. But what I did do before I did that was make sure to measure my waist and lay down the pattern pieces and make sure the actual pattern pieces would have enough to accommodate. Just not necessarily with the amount of ease they suggest for this pattern, but it would still be able to accommodate my waist, and then I can always tailor it later. Maybe I can pull like a pocket from here or something. I don't know. That was a close one. Hi friends! So we are at the point where we are ready for a fitting. Wow, that's a really dirty mirror, sorry. Keep in mind that I did cut a size larger than my bust was supposed to be, but if you are going to make this pattern for yourself, think about how floofy and large you like your sweaters, and, you know, measure the pattern pieces themselves accordingly, because this is quite big. Even with my 3rd trimester pregnancy belly, there is a lot of ease here. So next I'm going to check out the cuff situation. If the cuffs bring this all in, I don't mind a poofy sleeve as long as it's tight at the wrist. But if the cuffs are patterned pretty big, I'll probably adjust them and then maybe take these in as well, because they are quite big. If they're you know, taken in at the wrist, I don't mind a poofy sleeve, but otherwise I'm gonna have to do that. And I actually really love how big this is, especially right now when I'm pregnant. I am so heckin' cozy right now. I may end up like taking it in eventually, but for right now I am loving this. So I will definitely be keeping this part the way it is, even if I do take in the sleeves a little bit. As I suspected, once I folded this pattern piece over, the cuffs, as they were patterned, were going to be way too big for my liking. So what I ended up doing here is cutting the cuff pattern down to the smallest size that it has listed. Also, this pattern does not have a pocket piece, and I did want a pocket on my finished garment. So I took a sweater that has a pocket I like the size of and kind of felt for the lumpiness to trace it out to create a pattern piece of my own. Then I just evened up my lines and cut out the new pattern piece. I couldn't decide how I wanted my pocket to look, so I put it up to an Instagram poll, my very first one, and the majority voted to have a black pocket with the galaxy trim. So that is what I am going to create here. It is easier to put the pocket on before sewing all of the rest of the sweater, but I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I saved it until now. I had planned to cut this on the fold, but I did not have enough to do that, so I just added a little extra room for seam allowance and cut the pattern piece out that way. To create the trim for this pocket, I cut strips out of my galaxy fabric and then ran it through my bias maker tool under the iron to create some binding. I sewed that binding right sides together with my pocket, trying to meter the corners as I went. Then I flipped the other side of the binding over and stitched in the ditch to make sure everything was secure. I definitely liked how this way of doing the binding turned out a lot better than the way I did it for the toddler hoodie. And of course, centered everything up and then stitched it onto the hoodie. I used a top stitch for this, just stitching in the ditch of the trim. This is the most ridiculously ill-fitting, unflattering, most comfortable thing I have ever made in my entire life. I honestly love it. If you do want to use this pattern and you like something more fitted, I highly recommend measuring the pattern pieces themselves instead of just going with what the pattern tells you to cut out, because it has ease. Of course, I cut out an extra large size, but even then, the size that it said it was meant for me would still have been quite large. So if that's not what you're going for, just double check your measurements first. I love it. I'm so cozy. I am going to wear this for pajamas, to the supermarket, just all the time. All the time. So here they are, coordinating adorable, nerdy Star Wars sweaters. Max being a hoodie, I decided I didn't want that for mine and made a pullover, but I think they turned out super cute anyway. They've got the matching waistbands here. They've got this matching pocket detail, the matching cuffs, the matching shoulder seams details, and then kind of a nod to her hood in my neck binding. Say Star Wars! Say it really loud, say Star Wars! Macrina, say Star Wars! Say hi! Hi! So just a little wrap up here. I think the brindle and twig pattern is amazing. I would absolutely recommend it. The sizing seems pretty spot on. Max was a little big for her, but that's because I cut out the 18 to 24 months so she could grow into it. She is on the low end of that at 18 months, so I think it's pretty perfect sizing. The pattern instructions were really clear and everything went together very easily, so I don't think there was any issues there. The mood pattern I would recommend. It was a little less user-friendly. The instructions weren't super clear. I ended up abandoning them anyway to follow the instructions that came with the baby pattern, but I think they could be comprehensible to someone who has at least a little bit of sewing experience. As far as the pattern itself goes, everything went together well. the sizing was proportional to itself. So the size it had you cut for the cuffs did fit for the size it had you cut for the sleeves and everything like that. It went together well. But even if I had cut the size it recommended for me, I would have been absolutely swimming in this. And I have a 3rd trimester baby bump. So I think the pattern calls for a little bit more ease than is even necessary for something that's slouchy. That being said, I do really love how this turned out. It's very comfortable. So I would recommend this pattern. I would just say maybe keep an eye on the actual size of the pattern pieces and not just blindly cut out the size that it tells you to, unless that very, very extra large bagginess is what you're going for. But that's not exactly what's shown on the sketch, so just keep an eye for it. That being said, I do really love it. I especially love Mac's hoodie, and I think both came out really well. Both went together pretty quickly, and I would recommend both of these patterns. Bye, friends.